Good afternoon, live from Toronto on the GBCam network. This is the Chat Up Show, the show where we catch you up with the chat up of our weekly headlines. I'm your host, Elizabeth Aloyde, and I hope that you are ready to chat it up with me today. Now, as always, you know you can keep up with the GBCam network in various ways. You can listen and watch live 24/7 at www.gbkm.fm or www.gbkm.tv, where you can also catch up on any past shows you may have missed. You can check out our upcoming shows, learn a little bit more about our on-air personalities, and you can like, share, comment, all of that good stuff. As well as our website, we have our free app ready to download in case you haven't done that already. You can download our free app on the App Store or Google Play Store for both Apple and Android devices, where you get the exact same features as our website, but just in an app form that you can take on the go with you. And the best part is you get notifications every time we go live, so you'll never have to miss another show again. But if you do miss a show, do not worry. You can also check out our past shows tab, and you can check out the upcoming shows as well, just to know what our regular schedule is like. You can continue to watch us on Facebook at GBCam Television and YouTube at GBCam TV, where you can continue to like, share, comment, and subscribe. You can follow us on Instagram at GBCam FM and Twitter at GBCam_FM. Now, today is a special show. So sorry for the delay. We had a little, I guess, technical censorship situation that went on. Gonna keep it 100 with you guys. But this topic, I think, is one that we're all ready to have a conversation about. It's not anything new. It's definitely been a topic of conversation for a while, just to put it simply. But the recent interview that left us all slightly shook has kept it at the forefront of our minds and our memories, and we're ready to talk about it right here on the Chat Up Show. And the best way to do that is to allow our chatters to also voice their opinions. So for this show, we're really excited to say that our studio lines will be open for you to call in and give your opinion on whether you think the monarchy is racist. The monarchy, the royal family, whichever way you want to put it. So if you are ready to have this conversation with me, join in. Please make sure you dial into our studio WhatsApp line with the number on the screen. It's +33 758 958 567. That's +33 758 958 567. And these lines will be open for the rest of the show for you to join in, put in your 2 cents, and let us know what you think. Now, who knew that one interview would cause such a stir? I, for one, did. And let me tell you, I was ready. Now, I want to preface the show by saying that this is my opinion. Though it will be supported by facts, it is still an opinion. So do not take everything that I say as the Bible. This is how, you know, me, as well as some other people, have viewed the events that have transpired in the last couple of weeks, even the last few years, is how far we're going to go back to really dive into this topic about racism in the royal family. Now, I'm probably not the only person who has been waiting for the day for someone to publicly expose the royal family in some way. Maybe not expose, but just to talk about what really goes on behind closed doors. We had a little bit of a glimpse of that with Princess Diana when she did her own tell-all interview, but now we're getting a different side of it with her son, Harry, and his wife, Meghan, and the new family that they've created. Now, I think we all suspected who and what was behind Meghan's treatment these last few years and what led to her and Harry hauling their family across the Atlantic Ocean to get as far away as possible from this treatment. Of course, there's so much that went into how Meghan was treated by both the public, the media, but we're just going to be focusing on recent years and the aftermath of this bombshell interview that was hosted by the Oprah Winfrey Network, and Oprah interviewed Meghan and Harry and has us all talking about what was said. There's a lot to dive into here, but we're going to pick up some little bits and pieces to really discuss what it truly means to understand the royal family and what goes on behind closed doors, and whether Meghan's treatment was due to race or if it was just circumstantial. Yeah, we'll dive into that. Now, I think what really had a lot of people kind of up in arms, if you will, after this interview went live was the response we saw from the current members of the royal family, the current working members of the royal family, I should say rather. And especially one comment that was made by Prince William himself when asked whether his family was racist. Prince William said, "My family is most certainly not racist." Now, I think history books would beg to differ there, Your Highness. But I will give you the benefit of the doubt as to say that maybe we can't scold you for the works of your ancestors. But what we can do is recognize what your very much alive relatives have done to continue with colonialism, imperialism, and racism, to say the least. Now, again, I will mention that this is an interactive show where we do encourage you to share your 2 cents on this topic. So once again, our studio lines are open. You can call into the studio WhatsApp line at +33 758 958 567. That's +33 758 958 567, and you and I will have a little chat because I think this is a necessary conversation for us to have, especially since here in Canada we are part of the Commonwealth and the Queen is still considered a figurehead for us here. So anything concerning the royal family, I think, is part of our concern as Canadians in general. So whatever your opinion is on whether the royal family is racist or not, I want to hear it. So do call in and share that with us here today. Now, I think it's important for us to take a moment to just recognize how pivotal this whole situation is. As I mentioned, it's not the first time we've heard someone come out and say that the royal family has some issues, but I think it's the first time that someone who has been behind said closed doors has come out and openly talked about the racism that they've experienced or the racial undertones and microaggressions that they've experienced while being behind said closed doors. Now, for me, I remember when Meghan and Harry were getting married and we were all so excited. I remember everyone was like, yes, we're finally gonna have a black princess that is globally recognized. We're gonna have someone that's maybe gonna finally push this royal family into the 21st century, though they've been holding on to their old traditions for so long. Maybe it's time they're gonna modernize and recognize that, you know, sometimes you gotta shake things up. Maybe this was going to be someone who, as we know, Meghan Markle is an outspoken and she speaks out and up against any injustice from a very young age when she first wrote a letter to Procter & Gamble for their quote-unquote sexist ads. This isn't someone who has shied away from, you know, speaking her mind. So a lot of us were excited for Black excellence to finally be roaming the halls of Buckingham Palace, hoping that this would bring the change. And then when the ceremony happened, they were married by a Black man. There was a Black gospel choir, which we've learned now was apparently invited by Prince Charles himself. We'll get to that bit a little bit later. But there was just so much Blackness that was being pushed into the cathedral and even the palace, and we were so excited for change to happen. However, were we too naive to think that this one person could dismantle the work of a monarchy that's been alive and well for centuries? This one woman, this one biracial woman would make all the difference, would suddenly, you know, dissolve all of the racism that the British royal family has had a hand in all these years. Maybe so. But that doesn't take away from the fact that she went through quite a lot before her pregnancy, during, even after she had a miscarriage, even now during her second pregnancy, her third pregnancy technically, for her second child. Now we're finally hearing from the perspective of people who had been a part of this institution, or the firm as they called it, finally getting to understand what they felt, what they went through. Because all we had was what the media was telling us. And if we were gonna base our opinion of this family from what the media is telling us, it's a little skewed. You know, on the one hand, there's some of their family members who were so upheld, like upstanding citizens. They were so loved, so dear to us as peoples, as the general public. We love them so much. And then on the other hand, their children are being compared to monkeys dressed up in human clothes and paraded around as a joke. Now, I think what's important here to recognize is that there's racism and then there's microaggressions. That's still part of the umbrella of racism, but it's not outwardly, racist. It's not the definition of racism that we know, where someone is, burning a cross on your front lawn or dragging you on the back of a car or calling you racial slurs. Maybe that's not what we witnessed, but the microaggressions enough that we saw were being hurled at Meghan for these last few years has had a lot of us feeling some type of way. And then when this interview finally went live, we got to hear how it made her feel. And there were some shocking things that were revealed. And we're gonna dive into that a little bit more. But one question is, are we really surprised by what we've heard from this interview from Meghan and Harry, who both say that racism was a part of why they chose to leave, why they chose to take a step back at first and then ultimately leave? Are we really surprised? I mean, looking back at history, was this really shocking to us? Or is it more shocking that it's coming from a biracial woman who has Black heritage? Is that what is shocking to us? That she's able to speak up and speak out and advocate for herself. And she has her husband standing next to her being like, yeah, I support her in what she's doing. Is that why we're so shocked by what we're hearing about the royal family? Because I, for one, was not surprised, to be quite honest with you. Again, this is just my opinion. I wasn't surprised by what I heard, honestly. In fact, I thought it was going to be a lot worse than what I was hearing, to be fair, because of what we know historically to have happened. I mean, cough, cough, the transatlantic slave trade that lasted centuries. Who was that? British Empire. So being racist and the royal family being put into the same sentence wasn't really shocking for me, but I think it was the fact that we had someone who was part of that family also saying that, yes, this is what goes on. It was almost like it was co-signed by Harry. It was co-signed by Harry, and that gave it some extra weight for some reason. I mean, if a white man is saying it, then we gotta believe it, right? Now, Harry did mention in the interview with Oprah Winfrey that went live last week that racism was a large part of why the couple left the UK. And they claim that also a member of the royal family raised concerns, quote unquote, over how dark their son Archie's skin would be before he was born. Meghan Markle also said that her treatment in the tabloid compared to that of Kate Middleton's treatment in the tabloid when she was getting married to William and joining this family, let's say, was racist. That yes, they were rude to Kate, but with Meghan, there were those racial undertones that were very hard to miss. So after these claims, we saw Prince Charles out and about, doing his royal duties at his royal engagement. But something was a little different. He was photographed with a number of Black people, which, I mean, it's not new. They usually do this when they go on their tours to the Commonwealth, but it just felt a little fishy that this was coming so soon after they had been, exposed for being racist, that all of a sudden now you're gonna be photographed conveniently with a bunch of Black people at a vaccination center, just to kind of say like, hey, look, we're cool, we're not racist, we're down with the folks. And then again, the reports about, the gospel choir that was invited to the wedding, that they were invited by Prince Charles as well. That report all of a sudden surfaced as well. Where was that 2 years ago? It's like, oh, by the way, Charles loves to listen to Black people sing and perform, so there's no way that this family could be racist, is what I'm getting from all of this propaganda or PR stunts, as some people have called it. And then came Prince William's comment when he was asked about whether his family is racist or not. Now, this question in itself, who in their right mind is going to be asked this question and say, yes, my family is racist? Genuinely asking. I mean, there might be a few people out there who would say that because maybe they're not on good terms with their family and they have no problem, outsing them. But we're talking about Prince William here. He is in line for the throne. Is he really going to come out and say like, yes, my family is racist? I know, I'm sorry. Everything my brother said was true. We're all everything that he said. We're not that great people. Like, he's not going to say that. That question in itself was kind of a setup for not getting the truth behind what we're looking for. Now, maybe if that person had asked, hey, is it true that someone had brought up concerns about how dark Archie's skin tone would be before he was born? That might have gotten him. That might have ruffled a few feathers, sure, but maybe that would have gotten a bit of a response. Now, from my perspective, William answering this question saying that his family is very much not racist wasn't the best thing to do, provided history. Pick up a history book. You know, we'll see just how much racism played a part into how big and large the British Empire was able to grow, the wealth that they amassed over the centuries that they were in power. Because now people say that they're just figureheads, they don't really hold any true power. Would beg to differ, but that's not what we're talking about here. Just looking at history alone would tell you that, William, you come from a long line of racist ancestors who exploited ethnic people and bodies and cultures for their own personal gain. Now, that's not white supremacy at the best. I don't know what is. I mean, it's almost like they created the definition of racism and ran with it, and now they have a bunch of stolen artifacts in museums across the country from the colonies that they conquered, to put it nicely. Colonies that they made the natives feel inferior. Even here in Canada, we have the history of residential schools that wasn't too long ago, let's not forget. Now, maybe William's comment was because Meghan was a part of the family, and if the family had allowed his brother to marry this biracial woman with black heritage, then there's no way they could be racist, right? I mean, they let a black woman into the royal family, for crying out loud. How could they ever be racist if that has happened? Or he made these comments because they allowed them to speak out against racism, which Meghan and Harry have done in the past and have continued to do even after they've left their royal duties. Maybe that in itself, Harry and Meghan doing the work, would erase the family's racist past altogether and make us all forget what has happened in history and even in recent years, and make us think that yes, they are doing the work to educate themselves and change. But two members of this very large family is not going to change everything overnight. Let's just put that out there, okay? And I'm sure that they were thinking, as long as the public sees Meghan and Harry out here, you know, paraded as figureheads of anti-racism, then maybe people won't bring up racism when discussing Meghan's treatment. They thought, because then Harry and Meghan and themselves came out and said that yes, it was due to racism that Meghan was treated the way she was. And you can't deny it. Just looking at the headlines alone, you can tell that the British press does have an issue with race. Clearly, because it's not just Meghan. There are a lot of other black celebrities, especially those who are in the public eye. There's footballers who have been demeaned for spending the money that they have earned playing for these teams in this country. All of a sudden, the British press are pocket watchers for black athletes, but when it comes to their white counterparts, turn a blind eye. It's so amazing what they could have done. So is it so hard to think that maybe the British press was a little bit racist when it came to Meghan? No, it wasn't. But it's easier to brush things under the carpet, stay silent about it, so that these things can continue to perpetuate within this institution. If no one is talking about it, then what's the big issue? Let's just keep it hush-hush. Because when you start talking about it, that's when it becomes a problem. Well, guess what? It is a problem now because everybody's talking about it. Again, just want to mention that our studio lines are open, so if you would like to join in the conversation, remember you can dial into our studio WhatsApp line at +33 758 958 567. So, with that being said, I pose the question to you. Do you think that the royal family is racist? You know what? How racist do you think the royal family is? Because I think that it's not even a question of whether they are or not. I think it's pretty clear that we can say that racism it's in there. It's in the blood, you know, just from what we've seen. But how racist do you think? Is it enough that we should really be having these conversations? Or should we just sweep it under the rug as we've been doing all these years and act like it's not there? Now back to the idea that, you know, Harry has done the work. I speak of a racist past. We all know these images of Harry who was dressed in the Nazi costume for a fancy dress party. Not okay in any way, shape, or form. And I stand by that categorically. Was not okay. And I'm not excusing that behavior because it wasn't good. It wasn't a good choice, especially as a royal, especially since there's rumors that, you know, there are Nazi sympathizers within his own family. Him to dress up and essentially make a mockery of the suffering that Nazis had inflicted in Europe for those years, not okay. But it's clear that Harry has done the work to educate himself, has learned that that isn't something that he can do ever again, shouldn't ever have done, and he's known what unconscious bias is, because I'm sure he wasn't even aware, I don't know how, but I'm sure he wasn't aware that it would have, haunted him till this day. When he put that costume on, he probably thought, I'm going out to have a laugh with my mates. It's fine, no problem. Now, almost a decade later, people are still bringing that up. I hope you learned your lesson now, Prince Harry. Really do. Don't try it again. But it's clear that he has learned his lesson in terms of, unconscious bias. And last year in an interview with GQ, Prince Harry talked about the importance of recognizing unconscious bias. He said, and I quote, "Once you realize or you feel a little bit uncomfortable, then the onus is on you to go out and educate yourself, because ignorance is no longer an excuse." Now, there was a clip that surfaced earlier this last week, actually, where Sharon Osbourne had come out defending her friend Piers Morgan, who we know has been tormenting and, shall I say, bullying Meghan for the last few years. Some say it's because he was rejected by her, which honestly, sir, get over it. But Sharon came out and said that she's going to support her friend, and if people are going to call her racist for that, then so be it. And then she went on and turned to her black co-hosts and said, "Educate me. I'm the one that deserves to be crying right now because people are calling me racist, so educate me." No. Listen to Prince Harry here, Sharon Osbourne. Quote, "Once you realize or you feel a little bit uncomfortable, then the onus is on you to go out and educate yourself." So maybe it's time that we all go out and educate ourselves and understand what unconscious biases we may have and learn a little bit more how not to have them, to put it simply. Now, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, also spoke openly about the death of George Floyd in the summer of 2020, much like a lot of other people were doing. But guess who didn't speak out? The rest of the royal family. Now, I wonder why that is. Just a thought. But this is just another example of the fact that the Duke of Sussex has taken the time to educate himself, has recognized his unconscious bias, and maybe it's because he did marry a woman with black heritage that he's finally realized that, hey, black lives do matter. But the rest of his family still needs that wake-up call. And even he said in the Oprah interview himself that he has educated himself and he'd wished that his brother and even his father had done the same. But it's clear that they hadn't, because William is still parading around saying that his family is most not racist. Okay, Prince William. Now, Harry also mentioned that his own muddy past was what really led him to start educating himself and learning a little bit more about what not to do to come across, or what to do to not come across as racist or insensitive in any way, shape, or form. And that's all well and good, But then why should the rest of his family educate themselves too? Because this is something that has helped them amass the wealth that they have. Those crown jewels didn't just show up out of nowhere. They were taken from somewhere. A lot of the artifacts that we see in museums were also taken from somewhere. The empire that they built wasn't like, "Hey guys, nice to meet you. It's so great to see you. Can we please take over your land now?" No. It wasn't the nicest way possible, and it probably wasn't the most non-racist way. It definitely wasn't the most non-racist way that they created the empire that they have today, or had back in the day. Still have, because there are a lot of countries, including Canada, that are still part of the Commonwealth till this day. So why should they feel the need to educate themselves on something that they really don't see matters to them, or even bothers them in the slightest? And even their public and constituents don't seem to care either. I mean, we can see just from the press, which isn't made up by members of the royal family, though members of the royal family are known to wine and dine members of the press. Press is still a citizen. Now, we do have a caller now. Hello there, where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Dami. I'm calling from Lagos, Nigeria.
Hello, Dami.
How are you? Hi, my name is Dami. I'm calling from Lagos, Nigeria. Hi, yeah, I can hear you.
Great.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for asking. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate your show. I think you're a wonderful presenter. And as a fellow Nigerian, I just want to say I'm really proud of the work that you're doing. Keep it up.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. In terms of the topic, today, I think like the biggest word that really jumps out to me is accountability. I think a lot of us, especially in this generation, we don't have a strong sense of accountability. So most people doing the work on finding out whether they're racist or not, or finding those racial biases, they're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's much easier to tell yourself that, you know what, I'm not a racist. I have X, Y, and Z type of people as friends. But when you live in a culture where accountability isn't really promoted, the onus, I actually feel, it's not that the onus is on people of color to fight against racism, but because of the world we live in, it's become a necessity. Because people who have biases aren't going to push themselves to those uncomfortable places. So interviews like what Meghan Markle did, which obviously has pushed people into an uncomfortable place. That's why there's so much controversy around it. Still continue to be really, really important. The other thing that I also wanted to comment on is that while I don't know whether Prince William believes his family is racist or not, like I'm just going to use myself or what I've seen as an example. I think when people that are close to us, especially family members, exhibit traits that might not be well looked upon, we all have our blind spots, particularly with our family members, that make it harder for us to see. And not just in terms of blind spots as well. I think even when family members, or let me not say family members, let me just say people who are close to you. Like if somebody who's really close to you and is in a position of authority, let's say like an uncle or a much older family friend says something that's technically inappropriate, it's a lot harder for a lot of the time for people to be like, oh, hey, uncle that's 40 years older than me, that wasn't cool, even though technically that's what you should do. So in William's case, I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with William that his family is a racist. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to point out as well that in some cases, and like I said, I'm not sure how much that applies in this case, for some people, it's way harder for them to see negative traits of their family members or people who are close to them, particularly when it comes to things like race. What do you think?
I hear exactly the point that you're making, which is something that I was alluding to earlier, is that he's not going to come out and say that, yes, my family is racist. A, either he doesn't see it, or B, it's his family. How would he turn against his family publicly like that? Now, Harry is on a different end of the spectrum, where he's saying that he loves his family very much, but he also recognizes the racism within the institution. So it wasn't that he was necessarily calling out individual family members, because even when he had the opportunity to call out individual family members, he chose not to, explicitly chose not to. So I do hear the point that when it comes to family, a lot of people do have a blind spot, as you said, towards that. And it's harder for them to be like, yes, this is what's wrong with them, to someone who's not within that inner circle. And back to your point on accountability, I hear you 100% that it's hard for people to take accountability for their actions, especially when they don't want to see it as a problem, number one, especially when it comes to racism, because now folks are thinking that that's just a hot button subject. It's a buzzword, as it's been called, that, you call everybody and anything racist because you don't agree with them. So now it's harder for people to take accountability for their quote unquote racist actions or their unconscious biases. And as Harry said, that yes, the onus should be on you to educate yourself. But the question is, how can you educate yourself on something that you're not even aware of, right? And it's hard to get to that point, to be like, yes, this is where I've gone wrong, if no one is pointing out what it is explicitly that is wrong within those biases. If no one is pointing out what it is explicitly that is wrong within those biases. Yeah. Well, thank you to that call. I think we've lost you there. Thank you so much for calling in all the way from Lagos, Nigeria. We appreciate that comment. And if you have an opinion on this part of the conversation as well, please make sure that you dial into our studio WhatsApp line as well at +33 758 958 567. Now, on that quick note, we will take a very, very quick break, and we will be right back to continue the conversation. Stay tuned.
Knowledge is power. Information is liberating. Education is the premise of progress in every society, in every family. Come, Let's build a better future for you.
I'm the future and it's looking bright. I'ma get every single thing I used to dream at night. Slow grind all the time, do it till my pocket's right. If I got the education, then my future looking bright. Knowledge is power, we need it to succeed. Music is ours, it's everything we breathe.
Music Africa presents the Artist Education Program. We aim to provide Canadian artists, especially African Canadian artists, with the knowledge and skills that will give you the advantages to take over and start winning.
Hello and welcome back to the Chat Up Show. I'm your host, Elizabeth Eloidy, and today we are discussing whether the royal family is racist or how racist is the royal family. It depends which way you want to slice it. Now, this is an interactive show today, so if you have an opinion on this topic, I do encourage you to dial into our studio WhatsApp line at +33 758 958 567. Now, before we went on the break, we had a caller, Dami, call in from Lagos, Nigeria, and we were discussing accountability A, learning your unconscious biases and figuring out how to educate yourself, and whether the onus is on the person who needs the education or those educating, and also discussing Prince William's comments about his family not being racist and how it's not easy for him to come out and say, yes, his family is racist. Now, if we're gonna just divert from the word racism for now, maybe let's leave that behind. Maybe that doesn't allow us to see clearly, because sometimes we hear racism and we just go charging ahead. I do it too. I get a little angry and then I don't think clearly anymore. So if we're removing race from this equation of how Meghan was treated during her time as a working member of the royal family, it still doesn't make her treatment any better. Now, it's still pretty awful what she went through. She was being bullied by the press, who then called her a bully. And it was reported in one story that Meghan had actually made Princess Kate, I guess, cry before her wedding, only for us to find out during this exclusive interview with Oprah Winfrey that it was the other way around, that it was Kate that had actually made Meghan cry during the wedding. Now, it's important for us to notice that this happened under the eye of Kate Middleton and her team, the royal family's press team as well, and they said nothing and allowed this story to run with the narrative that Meghan was the bully and the aggressor in the situation. Now, if Meghan and Harry had not done this interview with Oprah Winfrey, we probably would have carried on with the impression that Meghan had made Kate cry before her wedding. Why didn't the royal family speak up and protect Meghan? Now, this was also a question that she raised. She said that it was easier for them to allow lies be spread about her than to speak up with her with the truth. I think that says a lot. Now, we're not even talking about racism, but could you imagine your own family? It's a family squabble, and then all of a sudden the press hears about it and they twist it. They completely twist the narrative and make you look like you were the one in the wrong, or the one that was being the aggressor or the bully. Now, this isn't the only time they've labeled Meghan as a bully. Days before the interview went live, there were reports about staffers claiming that Meghan had bullied them, had tormented them in various different ways, one including that she would send messages at 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, I know a lot of bullies then. If that's what makes you a bully, I too am a bully, because Kenny, our producer, will attest to the fact that I sent him emails at 6 o'clock in the morning. Is that me bullying him when I want to get the job done and do it well? I guess so. Apparently, according to the British press and according to these quote-unquote staffers. Now, Buckingham Palace has released a statement saying that they've hired an independent firm to investigate these bullying claims. We shall see how far that goes. But it's not hard to ignore the negative press that Meghan had received all these years that would lead her to want to say enough. And then on top of that, she also revealed the callous HR response to her pleas for help when she admitted that she had been going through a very low moment mentally. Her mental health was suffering, and she was very realistically thinking about ending her life while she was pregnant with Archie. That is heavy. And then to reach out for help as well, which isn't easy for a lot of people to do. There are so many people who are suffering in silence with their mental health illnesses that don't feel that they can reach out. But she found the strength to reach out. And what did they respond? Sorry, there's nothing we can do. Think about how it would look. Keep that in mind as I go on to this next part. When Kate Middleton had come out and she had, given birth, I think, to Princess Charlotte at this point, she went out on a royal engagement. So this was part of her job. To the launch of an educational film series called Out of the Blue, which was produced by the charity Best Beginnings, promoting the psychological well-being of parents and their children and the struggles of motherhood. So when Kate went out and was speaking openly about postpartum depression, that didn't make the royal family look bad in any way. It, however, showed her in a new light, more human, more approachable, a way that other women could relate to her, other people could relate to her and understand that, hey, a princess can go through this and is looking for help. Maybe I too can do that. So what made it so different with Meghan that they want to keep it silent? This could have been an opportunity for the firm, maybe not the royal family, but the firm, as Meghan and Harry called them, to, be champions of the importance of speaking out about mental health, the importance of taking care of one's mental health. But instead, what they chose to do was silence this woman in her time of need. And that was the time that Harry said, you know what? I've asked my family for help. We've asked the firm. We've asked HR for help. And nobody is choosing to help us. His brother stopped talking to him. His father stopped taking his calls. He said, enough, we're going, goodbye. And then people were shocked and confused as to why they made that decision. His wife was begging for help, was planning ways to end her life, and they chose to silence her and keep it hush-hush, sweep it under the rug, and keep it moving. Of course, that would make anyone want to leave, run away as far as possible. But they didn't even want to run away fully. They just said they want to take a step back, that they will continue working part-time, that maybe they don't have to live in England anymore, where everything feels so real and so close, that they can take a break, a breather, take some space, gather themselves a little bit. And then that's where everything went awry and Harry's protection was removed. And then they said, okay, goodbye to the royal family. We're no longer a part of that. But this in itself, just hearing about how Meghan was open to talk about her struggles and was seeking help, and to be shut down in the face, probably her lowest point, I think is very important for us to note. They really did not care about her well-being if that was the response that they had to her calling out for help. Now, I'd mentioned earlier before that Harry and Meghan had mentioned how the royal family, were prone to courting the press, if you will, having cocktail parties at the palace with the press. So it's not like they didn't have any connection with the press to be able to, support Meghan and Harry in some way. But no, they allowed the press to continue to berate, ridicule, bully even, this young family just trying to figure out a way to survive in this quote-unquote post-racial world. But are we really in a post-racial world if this is what we're still dealing with today? Is it really a post-racial world if a radio personality finds it funny to post a picture of a monkey dressed up and compare that to baby Archie when he was born? Is it? I mean, we must understand the racial connotations of a monkey being used as a picture for a biracial child. Now, speaking of this child, there was another revelation that I think was the most shocking part of the interview that had a lot of us feeling some type of way. And that was a revelation about the concerns regarding Archie's skin tone. Now, we do have a caller on the line. Hello, caller. Where are you calling from? Oh, dear. I think we've lost our caller. No worries. You can call back again. But as I was saying before, it was revealed during this interview that there were some concerns regarding Archie's skin tone, about how dark he would be. Now, just picture this with me. We have a woman whose mother is black and father is white, and we have a man who is fully Caucasian, and his grandparents are distant cousins in more than one way. Now there's a conversation about how dark the skin tone of their child would be. What is really going through that person's head? Now, they didn't mention the person who said it, but it was later revealed by Oprah Winfrey that it wasn't the Queen and it wasn't Prince Philip. So that leaves, I think, 4 or 5 other members that we could question who it is. Now, I don't think we're ever gonna find out who exactly said it, though if you know, spill the tea, because we really wanna know. I think it's safe to say that the fact that it was said is enough to show that, it's a little dicey. Now, on one hand, we could argue, give them the benefit of the doubt to say, maybe they're just interested in genetics. Maybe they were gonna go sit down and fill out a Punnett square about which gene was gonna be dominant or recessive, is it gonna be the black one or the Caucasian one. Maybe they were just curious, I just wanna know what really happens when people have mixed race children. I just wanna see what the different variations are. Or on the other hand, it is coupled with conversations about how Archie isn't gonna receive a title, and Archie isn't gonna receive any protection as the son of Prince Harry. And then on top of that, to hear these conversations happening about how dark his skin tone would be, it's not hard for one to leap to racism when thinking about all of these things in conjunction. Because what makes Prince Harry's son so different than other children who aren't necessarily that close in line for the throne, but still have received a title? It was also revealed that Queen Elizabeth also made an exception for Prince William's children to receive their titles. So why couldn't the same have been made for Harry's child? Is it because the mother was a biracial woman? I think it's safe for us to assume maybe that was part of the conversation, part of the reasoning behind it. Of course, this is following King George's law that if they're not in direct line for the throne, they will not receive the title at the same time. But then also no protection whatsoever. He's still a member of the royal family by blood. I mean, his father is literally the prince. It's not like some distant descendant. It's Prince Harry we're talking about, his son. How does he not receive any protection? So Prince Harry and Meghan thought that maybe it was because racism. And so did a lot of other people. And I wonder what you think. Do you believe that the reason that Archie does not have a title and will not be receiving any protection under the crown due to racism? I wonder. Now, just this comment alone about how dark his skin tone would be. By us not really knowing who said it, it's easy for us to give said person the benefit of the doubt. And I don't think they're going to reveal it because Meghan said that this would be incredibly damaging to the person. That in itself makes us want to know even more. I mean, I can't be the only one in this. It's going to be damaging for them. Why would they open their mouth and say it? Sure, it was amongst family, so they probably thought that this would never see the light of day, that it would never come out. But I'm so sorry. If you're not going to protect members of your family, then you're going to have to deal with the consequences of what you said to make them not want to be an active part of this family. And Meghan, sis to sis, girl, don't worry, drop the name. We just want to know. There's no issue, don't worry. We're not gonna come for them. It's not gonna be that damaging, but we just wanna know. We just wanna know. Who said it? Who said it? And then for us to see the aftermath of this interview, after all of this has been dropped, all of a sudden Prince Charles is out at the vaccination center and then Prince William also doing his parade up and down, doing their PR things as royals do. It seems a little fishy that this was the time that they'd want to, be out and about with people of color so much. Especially since they were so silent when we were speaking up for people of color last year. I mean, where were you then? Were you at the protest raising a fist high? I do not think so. I don't recall seeing any member of the royal family saying what happened to George Floyd was disgusting and should have never happened. Or even a royal family coming out and saying, yes, we recognize our history. I wouldn't expect them to talk about their present, but at least recognize the history within even just their own country alone. And say that we are evolving as a monarchy, as an institution, and we denounce those acts, and they are not what we stand for, who we are today. Didn't hear any of that, because why would they again? If they are benefiting from this system that they helped create, let's not get it wrong, why would they ever speak up and speak out against racism when it's what made them rich at the end of the day? Who would do that? It's like smacking the hand that feeds you. Why would you, right? Now, I mentioned history, but I think it's important that we also mention things that have happened recently, because it feels like a lot of us think that the racism within the family is so far away. As I mentioned before, residential schools here that basically aided in the genocide of Indigenous people within Canada wasn't that long ago, okay? There are still people very much alive today who can recount what they went through. Wasn't that long ago. So let's remember that. But even then, as recently as 2017, when Princess Michael of Kent, who was the wife of one of the Queen's cousin, wore a blackamoor brooch, basically blackface, to a Christmas lunch at the Buckingham Palace, where Meghan was also in attendance. It's so ingrained in the fabric of this family that even that she didn't think, maybe I shouldn't wear this brooch. She probably thought, it goes well with my outfit, I'm just gonna wear it. No problem. Of course, the princess did come out and issue an apology after the fact, after she received a lot of backlash for it. But the fact that this was something that she felt so comfortable wearing out in public to the palace, I think speaks volumes. Now, again, also, there's King Edward, who caused a constitutional crisis when he wanted to marry the twice divorced American socialite Wallis Simpson, who they had both been alleged that the two were Nazi sympathizers, part of the family, by the way. And if you ask anybody, that seems pretty racist. You would still be sympathizing with people who had created such atrocities in this world, the epitome of racism, and you're saying, yeah, they're good lads, aren't they? Yeah. So William, I know you're not going to call out your family and say that they're racist, and that journalist that asked them that question, you knew what you were doing too. You knew exactly what you were doing, because you knew he wasn't going to sit there and say, yes, they are. I'm so sorry about that. That question in itself was loaded and skewed, had its own bias. And it was coming from the British press, who, by the way, as far as I'm concerned, aren't the number one place I'm going to go for an education on racism, because they too uphold the institutions of racism. Ask any black journalist in this day and age what they have to go through to even get their stories on the editor's desk, let alone published. But we're not going to get into that. Harry was advised by a friend not to go with the press, knowing their racist past. And he thought, naively, of course, there should be no problem. He's a royal after all. And they basically have the press in their back pocket. But was Harry so wrong? And it shows in the difference in how Meghan was treated, even just from rubbing her belly bump, how that was all of a sudden demonized. This was her first pregnancy. What's so wrong with her holding her belly? In the way that she was dressed. When Kate wore a similar style, she was a style icon. It sold out everywhere. But if Meghan wore a style, she's letting go of all royal protocol. She's doing wrong. It's not good at all. Now, I mentioned earlier that maybe we should put race aside, that this isn't the first time the royal family has gone against someone who, I guess, goes against the status quo. Shall we recall the People's Princess, Diana, who in her very own tell-all interview had said from her own mouth that she knew that the royal family saw her as a threat, as something that they needed to get rid of. She said it with her own mouth. So maybe it's not that they're racist, maybe it's just they have a problem with outspoken women who don't stand for injustice, women who make it their life's mission to fight for the underdogs. Maybe that's where the real issue lies. But still, we can't ignore the racist undertones. I mean, it's there. Asking what the skin tone of the baby will be, what would that achieve? What does it really matter at this point? The baby is coming. Embrace the child. Now, Meghan and Harry did say that they have a great relationship with the Queen and Prince Philip, that Harry, and Meghan would have Zoom calls with the Queen, and she got to see Archie on Zoom and all of that good stuff. So, maybe it's not the Queen, but she's not the only part of the royal family. There are at least, as I said, at least 4 or 5 others that are there that we know of, that are really the public figureheads that Prince William, his family, I'm not going to go through all the names, don't want to call them out. I'm going to plead the fifth like Harry and Meghan did. But there are other members of the family there who could have easily asked these questions. So I wonder why and how are they so part of this institution? How is it still upholding such racism and we're acting like it's not there? It's like that clear film in front of us, like it's there, we feel it, but we don't see it, quote unquote. Now, Harry also told Oprah that some royals continue to go along with the charade because that's just the way things are. And I think as a person of color, we hear that so much that it's just the way things have always been. Why do we need to change it? Because it's not good. That's why. It's hurting people. It's hurting your own citizens. It's hurting your own family. So why isn't it enough that Harry has left for them to finally speak up? When William made this comment, he also mentioned that he hadn't spoken to his brother. That was at least 3 or 4 days after the interview had gone live. That in itself tells us a little bit. He said it with his own mouth that he still hasn't spoken to his brother yet, and he will. What is taking you so long, William? This is your blood. Your blood went through this. Now, I don't want to judge you and what you got going on with your family, because I'm sure that it's a lot. I'm sure there's a storm. The palace and their firm, as you can call it, have been in crisis meetings for a while. So I'm sure that this interview has ruffled a lot of feathers. And now they're maybe a little scared, and that's why we're seeing these PR stunts happening, why we're seeing Prince Charles out and about, why we're seeing William answer this question. He should have stayed quiet, which, in my opinion, he should not have answered that question, because now it's just opened up a can of worms where everyone is saying, look at all these receipts, Prince William. Don't try that. So, with all of this in mind, the question still stands. Is the royal family racist, or is it something that we've just created in our minds? I don't think so. I think the evidence is there. We've heard it from the horse's mouth. I mean, Meghan has spoken about it. Harry has come out and said that, yes, it was because of racism that they chose to leave. So can we continue to ignore it and act shocked and surprised when we hear these things happening? No, because again, we can't continue to choose ignorance. That's the easy way out. Can't do that anymore. Now we have to face it. It may be uncomfortable, yes, because a lot of people still love this family. They still love these figureheads. Understandably so, that's part of your culture. Good for you, well done. But at the same time, we cannot ignore the insidiousness of it all. What's gone on behind these closed doors that have now, they've aired their dirty laundry, and now we have to sort through it and understand it. But I can guarantee you, people of color have been telling you for a time that this family is racist. And maybe this is what it took for the rest of the world to wake up and realize that, hey, maybe not the family, but at least the firm, as they call it, has some issues. And it's the 21st century. All you have to pick up is your phone and Google what is racism, so you can educate yourself. We can't keep turning a blind eye to these things, and it's good that it's being called out. It's good that they came out and said that, yes, this is what's happened to us, because it's in the silence that has allowed this to continue, that has allowed us to get to even this point where we're like, whoa, that was a lot. It's because people have stayed silent. Now we have another caller on the line here. Hi there, caller. Where are you calling from?
Hello?
Hello, yes?
Yeah, I'm calling in regards to you're talking about the royal family, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a comment I'd like to add to it.
Okay.
I mean,
Where are
I
you
feel
calling from, caller?
bad. I'm sorry?
Where are you calling from?
Oh, I'm in the Toronto area.
Great.
Toronto. Yeah. Interesting topic, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry that Meghan felt suicidal, but when I watched the segment, she kind of came off a little naive. It's like she didn't know what she was getting into. In life you don't get nothing for nothing, right? Yeah. And you're marrying into the royal family. Mm-hmm. You're basically, as a black person, you're basically marrying your oppressor, right? Yeah. I don't know. Royalty is based on white supremacy, racism, and theft, mm-hmm. right?
Yep.
And I don't know, for black people not to know that, it's kind of like, what world are you in? You have no sense of history. I kind of where's your mind? I was laughing a few years ago when she got married to him, and people were like, oh my God, isn't it great? Black people are marrying into royal family. Mm-hmm. Why would you want to? Right? This is a despicable group. This is I don't know, it's why don't we just normalize the mob, right? Because to me they're criminals, a bunch of criminals. I don't know why in 2021 we still have royalty. We should be disbanded, really.
And that is
right?
a sentiment.
It's just the whole thing's just ridiculous.
Share. Yeah.
It's just one giant scam, right? I'm Guyanese, and if I go to England mm-hmm. and I go to a museum and I look at some of those crown jewels, mm-hmm. they came from Guyana.
Yep.
So someone who looked like me had a gun put to his head to give up those jewels. And once he did, he lost his head because somebody shot him in the head.
Yeah.
And we glamorize his family. Like, we don't glamorize the mob, so why would we glamorize his family? This is a criminal enterprise we're dealing with here, right? Like, I don't know why people are so, you know, it makes no sense to me. It's a ridiculous notion that one family should get all this money. And even the words they use, like all the countries that are in the Commonwealth, there's 2 billion people, 54 countries or something like that. Commonwealth. All those countries had one thing in common.
Yeah.
They all had to give up their wealth. Commonwealth. Right? So why are we glamorizing it? Like, I don't know, am I crazy or like why this should be disbanded in 2021? Royalty is, I don't know, it's a criminal idea. Like, I'm amazed that the masses haven't risen up against it. I guess, back in the 2nd century, they're probably killing people who spoke out against it.
Yeah.
But in 2021, why do we have a royalty in 2021?
Yeah.
Like, we're supposed to be advancing, and we're still back in the Neanderthal days still, to a certain extent. Like, royalty? I don't know. It's just my comment, and maybe I'm a little weird, but royalty doesn't make any sense to me. It should be disbanded, and we should get back our jewels and reparations while we're at it.
Yes. Shout out to reparations.
You know what I mean? Like, if you want reparations, we should get rid of the royal family as a starter. How's that? And it can countries their money that they stole from them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. Am I crazy? What are your thoughts?
Do not. I do not think that you're crazy at all. Now, I just want to circle back to your first point about how Meghan seemed naive to you. And that's the sentiment a lot of people share, because how could you not know about this family? We're taught about them in history books. At least I was in my history class for a very long time. And as you said, they were glamorized. Everyone wanted to marry into like a lot of people, their dream was to be a prince or a princess, marry a prince or princess, become royalty. But at the same time, recognizing what role they played in racism, white supremacy, i.e. building it, stealing
It's based
wealth.
On white supremacy.
Yeah.
It's based on racism. It's based on a bunch of negative agendas. Right? Like, it's just like the whole concept, to me, I find it appalling.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I when I hear people talking about it and they're speaking of it fondly, I'm like, okay, why don't we just promote the Gambezi crime family then and knight them? Right? Why don't we just do that?
Well, because
or
they
the
can
Colombian
actually
cartel.
go to jail.
I'm sorry?
Well, because the mob families can actually go to jail. I mean, we've seen crimes
all
being
they've
committed
done,
that they're not.
But the royal family hasn't done. In fact, if you look at the royal family, they've done worse than the cartel.
Yeah.
They've done worse. Like, how many people died so that they could get those jewels and those palaces and this, that, and the other? How many people who look like us died?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what's in our head. Like, they killed our ancestors so that they could have those palaces and stuff like that. Like, I mean, how many African countries were raped, robbed, and pillaged? Right? Like, I mean, there's only 60 million people in England, and there's 2 billion around the world who speak English. How did that happen? Like, you think that was a fair trade? You think those people happily said, yeah, I want to learn English? No, they had a gun put to their head. Right? They sacrificed their relatives so that, this didn't happen because people willfully said, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. They killed the people to get what they got. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, the crime families are illegal, but they've legalized criminality. That's what royalty is. You've legalized criminality. It's the same thing like they do in the States. You say this is a bad idea, but then you legalize it. So, yeah, it's bad depending on what side of the fence you're on. Right? Yeah. So, yeah. 20 years ago, if I sold pot, I'd be arrested for selling drugs. Now we've legalized it.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the difference? We just waited a couple of years and changed the laws. That's all we've done. And so maybe we should change the laws and ban royalty. I don't know,
Yeah,
right?
thank you. I mean, thank you so much for calling in and sharing your
Sorry.
opinion. No worries. I
Yeah,
appreciate it so much.
oh, you're welcome. Take care. Good show. Good topic, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for
All
tuning
right.
in. And yes, I mean, that's the sentiment a lot of people feel, as you know, that why do we still have a royal family, especially since they are the symbols of white supremacy, racism, and, you know, crime, as our last caller pointed out. And these are things that we're constantly thinking about. I personally am constantly thinking about. And how are we continuing to allow them to hold so much power over us when we also in the same breath say that they do not have any power? Now, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. And I want to say a big thank you to every single one of you that tuned in today and joined in this conversation that's so important for us to have. It's been so fruitful. And thank you especially to our callers for joining in and giving us your opinions. Do not worry, that's not going to be the last time on the show that we will be having interactive shows like this. But I want to say a big, big thank you for allowing me to, you know, have the platform to have this conversation. And thank you again to our producer as well for allowing me to have this conversation, because that in itself doesn't always happen. Now, with that, that concludes our chat up for today. Remember to keep up with the GBKM network. Listen and watch live 24/7 at www.gbkm.fm. You can download our free app so you can take us everywhere with you on the go. Follow us on Twitter at GBKM_FM and Instagram at GBKMFM. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at TIS_Liz_O. And with that, I say goodbye. I will see you at the same time, same place next week. Chat with you then. Take care.
GBKM TV, the station with a vision. GBKM TV, the station with a difference now. Slim Flex said so. Big up Ghana, up.
Do you believe you could host an entertaining, engaging, and thoughtful weekly show? Or are you a business person or entrepreneur interested in building a brand for yourself? Can you connect with an audience and have strong social media skills? If so, the GBKM network would love to invite you to join our team. We're looking for driven, genuine folks who are willing to work hard as an independent broadcaster. If this sounds like you, come join our team. For more information, email your resume to career@gbkm.fm. That is career, CAREER @gbkm.fm. It's time to turn your passion into a career. Do you believe you could host an entertaining, engaging, and thoughtful weekly show? Or are you a business person or entrepreneur interested in building a brand for yourself? Can you
Knowledge is power. Information is liberating. Education is the premise of progress in every society, in every family. Come, let's build a better future for you.
I'm the future and it's looking bright. I'ma get every single thing I used to dream at night. Slow grind all the time, do it till my pocket's right. If I got the education, then my future looking bright. Knowledge is power, we need it to succeed. Music is ours, it's everything we breathe.
Music Africa presents the Artist Education Program. We aim to provide Canadian artists, especially African Canadian artists, with the knowledge and skills that will give you the advantages to take over and start winning. Knowledge is power. Information is liberating.